Welcome to Becoming Fearless, the personal growth podcast for you if you are ready to overcome fear and step into your greatness. Our purpose is to help you overcome your limits, have loads of fun along the way, unlocking your fullest potential in life, business, health and relationships every single day. I'm your host, Charlotte Carter, a high-performance coach and entrepreneur with over 20 years' experience. I've supported many highly driven, talented people like you who dream big and are ready to take action to overcome what's holding them back. Each week, my guests and I will be sharing hacks and habits on how to build self-belief, courage and confidence to master your mindset and navigate your emotions so that you can reach your human potential in a way that feels light, fun and easeful and helps you become fearless. Let's go. Welcome to another episode of Becoming Fearless. I am so glad that you are here listening to this one. This is a guest episode, and today I've got the wonderful Claire Jones, who's got a fabulous story and a brilliant service. Let people know a little bit about who you are and what you do first, Claire.
Okay, well, hi Charlotte, thank you for having me on the show. So as you said, my name's Claire Jones and my business is called Your One Life Healthy Weight Solutions. And the reason that I called it Your One Life initially was because I became very well aware on my own personal journey that by living a life that was not in alignment with my values and goals in life, which was to live a long and happy and healthy life, I needed to do something about it. And it was a few kind of things that happened along the way that kind of made me acutely aware that actually, this is no practice run. This is the only shot we've got to get it right, in terms of being able to achieve those things that we want in life. It's not like we go, oh, well, that didn't work that time around. So, when I get to the end of my life, I'll just do it all over again. It doesn't happen like that. So we've got to keep trying. We've got to keep kind of going and making sure that what we're doing is in alignment with what we want. Otherwise, we're not going to get to the end of our lives and feel like we're satisfied, and that we've done everything that we want to do. And, you read, don't you, about people, perhaps, nurses who look after people at the end of their lives. And the biggest thing that people talk about is the things they wish they had done and they hadn't done. And it, as I say, I became acutely aware through my own sort of suffering and pain and seeing those around me who had perhaps not made the best of their lives, that actually, I wanted to do something about it for myself. And then once I was able to do that, it then led me on to seeing how I could help others to do the same. And I particularly focus on weight because it is, unfortunately, in the world we find ourselves living in, a huge problem that's affecting 2/3 of the population. And if we as individuals don't change how we're living our lives, we're going to live shorter lives than our parents. And that's scary.
That is scary. We have gone all in straight away. Are you ready? This is the reality with weight loss, isn't it? In terms of anybody's relationship with food. So anybody's relationship with food and their weight is a journey, whether it's that they've got it all, they understand it, they can navigate it, they feel great within it, or whether it's pulling at different parts of who they are and how they show up in various guises. And it's something that's just essential for us to live, to function. And like Claire said, we everybody, I believe, really truly wants a deeply satisfying life. Whereas when they get to the end of it, if they're able to, they can reflect back and go, do you know what? I did this, I tried this, I achieved this bit was really great. And I've actually made what I wanted out of my life, rather than look back and think, do you know what? I wish I'd have done this, that and the other. So let's go back to that moment for you then, that moment where you were like this big, one of many big aha moments where you're like, I've got to really take a look at my life. I've got to look at what's going on for me. And just describe to the listeners where you were then. What was that situation?
Yeah. Well, it wasn't, I think, one particular moment. It was a series of things that happened. And I don't want to sort of, go into too much detail and take too much time, because it's quite a long kind of sort of story to it, which obviously, I'm happy to share it, other times, but just to try and sort of keep it brief. It was about a 5-year period from 2006 to 2011 where, as I say, I became acutely aware that my lifestyle was not in alignment with my desire to live a long, happy, healthy life, and that I needed to make some changes. And the first change that I made was to stop smoking. And I'd tried and failed at that many times over the years. I'd started smoking in early teens, and it quickly became a good appetite suppressant and one of the really helpful ways that I managed my weight. Obviously not healthy way, but it was one of my crutches, one of the things that I could do. So of course, giving up smoking, that was going to have a big impact on then how I managed my weight, and my relationship with food and weight had also been a very bumpy ride over many years. Again, I went to my first diet when I was in my early teens, and my relationship with food was really, not a good one. My relationship with myself was not a good one. So I found myself in 2006 having stopped smoking, and I was very, very determined at this time to actually stop smoking, because I knew I'd really started to realise just how it was impacting on my health and my future, health and well-being, never mind my current health and well-being, and all sorts of things I was experiencing. So it was the right thing to do. And I decided that I needed to do things that would kind of help me to not want to smoke. So I thought, what can I do that that doesn't involve eating food, and that is going to help me to stop smoking, that's not really compatible with smoking. So I decided to take up running, because I thought that's going to be great. It's going to help me get really fit and healthy. So of course I started running, and I found that I really enjoyed it, even though growing up and what have you, I never enjoyed running. I thought, why on earth would anyone want to do that for fun? So as you can see behind me and behind you as well, I can see I accumulated rather a lot of medals over the years, but there was a lot that happened before then, in that when I started running, I kind of had this misunderstanding that, that meant, I'm doing all this running, because I started with running a 5K and achieved that, and that really did help me in terms of not wanting to smoke, and it really did kind of put that to bed. But I had then in my mind, it's like, right, okay, let's next stop London Marathon, and it took me 18 months to get there. But in that time, obviously, I was building up my distances, and I was building up my fitness. But unfortunately, when I started doing that, I was actually a healthy weight, at one of the times of being a healthy weight through my history of yo-yo dieting. But because I had this misunderstanding that meant I could eat as much as I like, because I was running and burning all these calories, unfortunately for me, it didn't work like that. I ended up actually putting on most of the weight that I'd lost in 2006 before I stopped smoking. And then I found myself on the start line of the London Marathon, overtrained, and really, not feeling in a good place at all, thinking, how the hell am I going to get around these next 26 miles? I was absolutely terrified. And sadly, I managed to get as far as Tower Bridge, which is 12 miles. And the pain in my hips was just horrendous. I had to walk the rest of the way. I ended up with hip bursitis in both hips, and that meant I couldn't run long distances for at least 6 months whilst I was recovering. And it was that, I think, was the really defining moment of like, okay, I've cracked the smoking. What was it that I did that enabled me to crack it? And I'm now, I'm fit. I am fit, because I'm, my lung capacity and all of that through all the running, but I'm carrying more weight than is healthy for my body. And if I want to be able to carry on running, I'm going to have to sort this out. So it was really that moment, which was the 26th of April, 2009. And the medal that I earned on that day is here. And I don't think I'd done anything else quite so hard as that in my life. I don't know how I got through it, but what it did was it taught me what I was capable of. And from that day forward, I decided that I needed to start behaving in ways that were actually in support of my desire to live that long and happy and healthy life, but not just in the future, but starting now. So
Yeah.
there we are.
Thank you for sharing that. There will be people listening that have had that kind of same thought process of actually, I'm now moving my body, and so it's okay for me to not necessarily take as much attention of what I'm eating or reward myself by eating way more because I'm moving my body. And I always think it's a typical pattern that I come across, and it's a typical pattern in society. I think it's like I've worked out, so I've earned this, and it's that treat status and all of those kind of things that go on for people listening. So if you are in that space as you're listening, just take note of what we're going to talk about next, because you can make some decisions and make some choices that are going to get you that long fulfilled, sustained, healthy life, where you can have a bit of whatever it is that's going to bring you joy and happiness and be aligned with your values and your desires. So let's talk about stored energy and the whole concept of stored energy.
Yeah. So I think we can get very distracted by the noise that's out there in the kind of like the weight loss world. And obviously, most people that I speak to either have had a weight problem or have got a weight problem or know someone and worry about someone who has a weight problem. And there are a lot of misconceptions, I think, out there around what causes weight gain. And I have my own personal experience that started in my early teens. I'm now 51, and I've managed to maintain a healthy weight now since 2011. So that's 13 years now. But prior to that, obviously, very bumpy ride. And as I say, the misconception is that there's nothing we can do about it because it's due to hormones or the menopause or not being able to exercise or the medication that we might be on. Now, yes, all of those things do actually make it harder, but what it really boils down to is the reason why we gain weight is we consume more energy than we actually need on a continuous basis. That's how we gain energy, because how we gain stored fat, because stored fat is simply stored energy from the food that we ate that we didn't need at the time. Now, obviously, there are various things that influence how much energy we use, but what we have to remember is that our bodies want us to conserve energy. They don't want us to use lots of energy. So, of course, when we try to restrict what we're doing, we're flying in the face of our biology. We're only designed to lose weight voluntarily. We're not designed to lose it. Sorry, rewind. We're only designed to lose weight when food is not available. We are not designed to lose it voluntarily. So, of course, when we decide that we want to lose weight, we are basically putting ourselves into direct conflict with everything about ourselves, which is why it becomes so hard. And, of course, there's only a very small window that we can find to actually eat the right amount of food where we get enough nutrition to be able to be healthy whilst also starting to use up that stored energy. Because it's simply like, when we are perhaps, buying logs to put on the fire in the winter, we might stockpile those logs, and then in the winter we will then use up those logs. But unfortunately, in the world we find ourselves living in, with food all around us, there's so many influences on us, so that even if we make the decision that we want to reduce what we're consuming, both in terms of changing the amount and the quality of what we're eating, trying to do that when we're surrounded by food all of the time, and we are hardwired to overeat when food is available, because that's the reason why we store energy, is to see us through times when food is scarce. But food is never scarce in the world that we find ourselves living in now. So there are so many influences, and we are constantly being manipulated by the food industry and by the hospitality industry to consume more than we need. Now, there's no problem with going out and going out to a restaurant or getting a takeaway or celebrating with food and drink, if we only do that every now and then. But the world we find ourselves living in, we're doing it all the time. And that is why we are continually storing up more and more energy. And the reality is that it only takes 120 calories a day more than what we need to put on a stone in a year. That's a Kit Kat. That's a banana.
That's just like mind-blowing on so many levels, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's
exactly. So there
those.
I was. Yeah. And there I was doing all this running, thinking I was burning all these calories, and I was, but then I was consuming more than I was burning.
Yeah. And you won't be alone with that pattern for certain.
Mm-hmm.
So we're here and we've got all these opportunities for food all around us. And there's obviously habits that people get into for various reasons, isn't there? They're related to emotions, they're related to experiences for various reasons. Their relationship with food and themselves and the place that they're in affects how they're going to make the change. What are the things that you feel allowed you to make that change when you realised, hang on a minute, I haven't got it quite right. I've got to check back in with myself. I've got to look at what are the changes that I need now to be able to get to this sustainable, healthy living.
The first thing is understanding the problem, because I think when it comes to managing our weight, when we decide that that's what we're going to do, we go straight for the solution. We don't actually take time to understand the problem. With anything else, we will probably do a bit of homework and trying to work out what's the problem, what all the possible options, and then go for the solution. Whereas we just, right, okay, I've just got to eat less and move more. And of course, as soon as we start eating less and moving more, we are in direct conflict with our biology and our psychology and our physiology. And so then we're asking the impossible of ourselves. So we've got to spend time understanding the problem. And the very first step of that is understand how much energy we're actually consuming. Before we start thinking how much less we need to consume, we need to understand how much we're actually consuming. And it was an exercise that I did for myself, I think would have been back in, sort of 2005, 2006, when I very first started to kind of think, I started to change from my concern from how I looked to actually how was I feeling, from a health perspective, and what did I, what did I want to be like in 10 years' time? Did I want to be, struggling with mobility and being out of breath and potentially having diabetes, or did I want to be fit and healthy and be able to be mobile? So I actually just kept a food diary of what I was actually doing without changing anything. And that really opened my eyes, because I was like, I don't eat that much. But actually, the quantity may not have been that much, but the energy density of the foods that I was eating, cakes and crisps, and I would buy these great big baguettes for lunch and have it all filled with all the tuna and mayonnaise and all that. There's nothing wrong with tuna and mayonnaise, by the way, but it's just how much of it we have that's the issue.
Yeah.
So I was having, and that would be my lunch. And then, I would have had my breakfast. And so I'd have this big baguette and cake and packet of crisps. And when I actually started to pay attention to how many calories I was actually consuming, bearing in mind that the average, and nobody's average, but what I find in my experience, most of my clients will maintain well close to around 2,000 calories, which is actually what the government recommends for a woman daily. I was consuming in excess of 3,000 to 3,500 calories every day. So it was no wonder I was putting on 1 to 2 pounds a week at that rate.
Yeah. And
so if we're only consuming 2,000, if I'd been 2,120, for example, I wouldn't have perhaps noticed that I was gaining weight, but by the end of the year I would have done. But obviously I was gaining much faster than that. And I think when we're not paying attention,
I think that's it, isn't it? I think there's a place where there's so many subconscious habits that we go through life with, and like grabbing food for a lot of people is part of a habit that they've had for a long time, not necessarily looking, just thinking, actually, I'm really hungry and I'm just going to grab this and then I can carry on with what I'm doing. And I think this sort of being so mindful and being present and being aware of actually what you're putting in. I know I've worked with people with the whole food and mood diaries and that kind of space, because you've got to have a reality check with yourself, first of all, before you can go into any way of looking at how you're going to, what's going to be the best method and way for you to approach it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I often use an analogy of, we don't ignore our bank balance. We don't ignore the prices of things when we're thinking about how we spend our money. this is no different, really. It's just we have an energy budget. We all have our own individual amount of energy we can consume. And if we spend more than that, then in terms of what we're consuming, we're gonna store energy. It's gonna end up on our bodies as stored fat. Whereas if we're underspending, then we're going to be creating that deficit that we need to use up the stored energy. Just like we save money or we go into debt, And we don't say to people who are struggling to manage their money, it's all right, don't look at your bank balance, don't look at the prices, it'll all go away, it'll sort itself out. And yet that's what we seem to say when it comes to managing our weight. It's like, don't look at it, that'll just make you feel worse. But actually, the long run is you'll feel far worse if you don't confront it, because the problem will continue to get worse, because we are hardwired to overconsume. The desire for food sits within the primitive part of our brain that is very strong and is only interested in looking after us in the here and now and doesn't care about how we're going to feel in 10 years' time. Whereas our rational brain does. And that's the part of our brain we need to train to make the decisions about food. And that's what I help people to do.
And let people know a little bit about the old sweet spot, because I think this is a great part of your work, a great thing that you talk about. And I remember listening to this when you stood on stage recently and hearing a few of your analogies and thinking, yeah, they definitely land with people. So do you want to share what that is for people?
Yeah. So basically, obviously, we are surrounded by food all of the time, and food is there to be enjoyed. If we didn't enjoy food, we wouldn't want to seek it out, we wouldn't want to eat it, and therefore we wouldn't survive. So it's fine to eat food that you enjoy. The last thing I say to people is that, the most important thing I say to people is, don't waste a single calorie on food you don't like, because then you are going to feel like you're missing out and it's going to be miserable. We want to make sure that we're enjoying the journey as much as possible. So we've got to make sure that when we are choosing what to eat, that we're kind of trying to hit the combination of three things, and this is what I call the sweet spot. So that is the amount of energy we're consuming, the quality of the nutrition of what we're consuming, and also the enjoyment. So if you know that what you're eating is the right amount of energy, that it's nutritious, perhaps at least 80% of your food or the energy you're consuming is from nutritious whole sources that have got fibre, vitamins and minerals and protein, and are going to keep you sustained for long enough to last you till your next meal, so you don't kind of feel like you need to keep snacking all the time, and that you enjoy every single mouthful. If you can hit all of those three things, you can't go too far wrong.
I love that. I think the enjoyment is such a big part of eating and your relationship and the whole socializing and everything like that. And it's also that emotional part, isn't it? It's that emotional part that we have with everything that we do in life. That is emotions, whether you're aware of them or not. It's a big part of navigating, isn't it? So can you talk about another one of your phrases that you use that's about when people can notice when they're feeling full?
Oh yes, so I call it my law of diminishing taste. Yeah. So as I said, we are hardwired to overconsume, and if we have excess weight, then we will have been used to perhaps eating quantities of food larger than what is healthy for us. And in order to manage this, we've got to try and learn how to eat less, which is really hard when you're used to eating more. So what I encourage my clients to do is pay attention to their body's signals of actually starting to notice when they're feeling like they're no longer hungry. So when we start eating food, when we're hungry, obviously when we're hungry, we look at something very differently to when we're not hungry. We might look at the same plate of food when we're starving hungry and think, oh my God, that's so delicious, I can't wait to eat it. When we're full up, we might look at it and go, oh, I could take it or leave it. So, of course, when we're hungry, the primitive drive takes over, and the more hungry we are, the more likely that is to happen. But if we can basically start to recognise that if we eat more slowly, we can actually start to tune into how we're feeling much more easily. And what that enables us to do is bring forward the point at which we stop eating, so that we can stop when we feel satisfied before we've got to the point where we feel overfull. Because if we're really, really hungry and we eat really fast, we might, polish the plate off and go back for seconds and then go, oh my God, I've eaten so much, I feel so full, why did I do that, and here I go again, and then we berate ourselves for not having any control. Whereas actually what we've been trying to do is fight our primitive brain, which is really, really strong. And so we kind of want to avoid getting that hungry in the first place. But of course, when we are hungry, the first mouthful is the most delicious thing ever, especially if it's our favourite foods. But what we can notice if we slow that process of eating down is that actually each mouthful, little by little, becomes less enjoyable. So when we actually reach that point where we've kind of it's no longer super tasty, but maybe it's just okay, but not to the point where it started getting sickly, that's the point where we need to stop. Obviously, it's not something that we're going to be able to just suddenly do overnight, but it takes time and practice, just like learning anything else. Learning how to eat differently takes time and practice, and we don't get better at something if we don't practice it. And yet we seem to think that when it comes to managing our weight, we should know exactly what to do and be experts from day one. Yet in anything else that we would be applying ourselves to, we'd be accepting that we don't know how to do something very well, and we might need a bit of help, and we might need a bit of support, and we might need some encouragement, and we might have to kind of remind ourselves that we're new and we're learning, and that we've just got to keep practicing, and eventually everything will click. And that's the way that we need to approach this, rather than go, oh well, I couldn't do that, I've ruined it, and there must be something wrong with me. If you overeat, there's nothing wrong with you. If you overeat, you're behaving like a normal, natural person who is hardwired to eat when food is available, and overeat when food is available.
So let's fast forward to people that you've worked with and yourself and their story. How's life different once they've got themselves and done the work and build their habits day by day to create this different relationship with food and different relationship where they've got way more energy? How's life different for them? What are they able to do? What's like the biggest outcome or the biggest transformation for them?
I think I can sum it all up in one word, and that is freedom. Freedom from worrying about health, freedom from worrying about what to wear, if it's going to fit, freedom from worrying about what other people are going to think, freedom to just be able to get up and do what you want to do, whatever that might be, knowing that your weight is never going to hold you back anymore. It's just incredible, and it's that kind of that's what keeps me where I am. Is I don't want to give that freedom up. I just feel so much lighter in every way, not just in terms of how I move my body, but in terms of just having the freedom to choose to do what I want to be able to do. And, if someone says to me, oh, do you want to go to Go Ape? Yeah, great. Go Ape. But that's a bit of a story behind that, because I went and did that in 2009 with my son for his birthday. And I couldn't get around the whole course. I'd stop halfway, and he had to stop as well, because I was his guardian, and so he couldn't carry on his own because he was too young. So of course that was really gutting for him and me, because I couldn't do it. I didn't have the physical capability. I was too heavy. I couldn't move my body in the way that I needed to. So I went back and did it a few years later and got around all the whole way. But it's little things like that. You just be able to show up and do whatever you need to be able to do, or walk into a fitting room with some clothes from the shop. And food, clothes labels are a bit of a contentious issue, but when you get familiar with the different shops you might shop in and what you can choose, just knowing that it's going to fit and it's going to look all right. You're not going to be worrying about these lumps and bumps and rolls and where it's going to chafe you and all of those sorts of things. It's just I will never go back there, because I appreciate so much the freedom of not having that experience anymore. And it's what my clients say as well, just how much energy, it's the energy thing. They're like, I have so much more energy, and this is why I call my signature program Energize Your Life, because that is exactly what it is. We unlock that stored energy, it gives us so much more energy, and it's so exciting.
Yeah. And it's so liberating, isn't it, watching people's journey like that, and they kind of like just transform and change. It's a ripple effect is huge, isn't it? It's a ripple effect on their families, how they show up, their social life.
Yeah, it's generational, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what one of the things that, I as someone who worked in the NHS for 25 years nearly now, I I'm very passionate about health, and I've seen what happens when people don't look after themselves. I've seen the whole life cycle from birth up to death and everything in between. And the so much of what happens to us is preventable because of it's down to the lifestyle choices that we make. We may feel powerless to do anything about it, but once we recognize that actually we have a choice about everything we do, when we actually start tapping into that rational part of our brain, changes everything.
It does. So if people have been listening, they're going, oh my goodness, I need to find out a little bit more about how Claire works and what she offers. Let people know a little bit about what your services are and how people can work with you if this is something that they listened and they're like, actually, I need to take action on this.
Yeah. So basically, just to be clear, I'm kind of like a coach, mentor, educator, that kind of role, rather than sort of like a therapist. And obviously, if people want to work with me, they have to kind of be clear from sort of perhaps really active kind of trauma or eating disorders or anything like that. But if people are ready to kind of think, well, okay, I know what I want, and I just need to know how to get there, and I need some support to show the way and be by my side. That's basically what I do. And I work one-to-one intensively with people. So I have like a 12-month transformational program, which is the Energize Your Life, which is, we work together for a whole year, and we literally, I'm there for my clients every day through whatever is going on. And we work through in the context of real life. We don't say, right, okay, for the next few weeks nothing else is going on so we can concentrate on your weight loss, because life doesn't work like that. This is about navigating real life as we go and learning and understanding the problem, and then coming up with together with the right solution for that person. I'm very neutral when it comes to different diet approaches. Some people are very keen to do some of the well-known programs, and it's just getting in the right mindset to be able to stick to it, whereas others, you really don't know what to do, and we will basically come up with a bespoke solution for them. But I take them through quite a lot of education work as well, because this is very much, it's like a training program, really. It's a training to do things differently, and I'm the teacher, I'm the mentor, and the coaching bit kind of comes a bit later, because that's when I start to kind of see my clients find their own power, and then I support them to kind of embrace it. Then I have a 4-month program, which is kind of more like a Kickstarter. It's quite fast paced, so it's like a month of sessions with me, one-to-one sessions with me, and everything is online. All my work is online, so we have like month to 6 weeks of sessions where we kind of work intensively on understanding the problem, creating the solution, and then followed that with like 3 months of accountability to kind of help them implement what they learned. And that's really kind of like the lower budget option, really, than the 12 months, because obviously not everybody can invest in the 12 month. And then I do have a self-study program as well. And basically it's the same stuff through all of it. It's just the only difference really is how much of my time goes into working with the individual. And then I have a membership for anyone who's completed any of those things. They can join my membership for that ongoing accountability and support. And then I have my book, How to Eat Less.
And all of those details will be put at the bottom. Haven't you got 2 books?
Oh, yes. So I also have a Healthy Habits Handbook, which is really about supporting people with consistency, because when we're trying to change our behaviour, it does require obviously some concerted effort and having that visibility of what we're actually doing. And it's also important to be able to prioritise our actions, because if we try and do everything all at once, we're going to do nothing very well. Whereas if you say, okay, these are all the things I want to do, but this one thing is the one thing that is my non-negotiable, and as long as I do that, then I'm okay, and then everything else can follow in behind. And so it's a handbook to kind of help people to kind of get that visibility and be able to assess each week how they're doing against the things that are important to them. So yeah.
And you have such a great way with people, and such a warmth, and provide a safe space for people. I know that people that I personally have worked with in this field, it's not an easy topic to navigate. And some people have had this journey for years and years and not been able to tell anyone, or have a lot of shame or embarrassment and all of those kind of things. And I think one of the things that your service offers and what you offers it uniquely is about this proven experience within yourself, proven journey, but also this safe environment where they get you bespoke you to be able to answer their stuff. It's not like in a conveyor belt of stuff. They get your eyes on their situation to a greater or lesser intensity, depending on what program they come into, but they get you. And that's priceless when somebody's in that place, because part of the work initially is providing this safe space, isn't it? And that listening ear for the first part of that journey, and then the support.
Yeah, absolutely. That is absolutely vital. And it's one of those, it's obviously highly confidential, because obviously what people bring is very, very sensitive and very emotional, and obviously a lot of it is actually being able to admit to themselves that there's a problem, or they're behaving in a certain way that they're not happy with, and actually once they start sharing that with me, it kind of releases the pressure, and enables them to actually start looking, okay, what's next? What do I need to do, and how do I need to do it? And recognizing that making mistakes is a normal part of the journey for anything we learn to do.
Yeah.
So, and I'm there to hold them through that.
For certain. So thank you so much for coming on. Like I say, all of the details of getting hold of Claire and following her, and booking a call if you want to have a chat about any of the offers, definitely do book a call to see where you are, and Claire will totally guide you. I want to ask you the question that I've asked everybody, which is, what's a book that has made an impact in your life, in any of the spaces that you've talked about, any of the parts of your journey? What's a book that you have read where you're like, this has just shifted something in me to be able to overcome some fear and allow me to step into who I am?
Yeah, it's probably one that you will be very familiar with, or perhaps other people have also mentioned, is the Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway by Susan Jeffers. I think I first read that about 20 years ago, and it just woke me up to the fact that fear is a normal part of life, and actually there's the same emotion involved in fear as in excitement. And if we change our perception, and actually what we find that actually when we start doing something, it's the action that moves us out of the fear. And when we actually start doing it, and we then build the confidence that shows actually we can do it, we can actually do it, things then become much less fearful. And then the more confident and competent we are, the more capable we are, and the less we feel afraid. That had a massive impact on me all those years ago, and I think I read it at the right time in my life as well, I think.
And I think sometimes with some of these books, it's like you read it and it's made a big impact. Then if you read it again, you're going to take something different. Some of these real powerful books like that one, you can read it again, can't you? You can either have a reflection of, wow, it really did change this, and this in my life. And now I read it and now I feel all different emotions. They're really powerful, aren't they? So thank you so much for sharing your story, sharing the kind of situation that people face themselves in life in terms of it's all around us, and you're always going to have to negotiate some relationship with it in all walks of life, and wherever you are on your journey, and ultimately having a healthy one, and having a positive one, and having one that's sustainable and one that you enjoy is so powerful. And I love this outcome of freedom and liberation and all of those possibilities for the true adventure that we call life that you can have once you've unlocked some of this stored energy. So thank you so much for being on the podcast. I've loved chatting with you. And anything else that you want to add before we round up?
I suppose in summary is just to say the key to success with weight management is changing our attitude to food, seeing it as something that is supporting our health, as opposed to feeling like we're sort of having to restrict ourselves, and eating it in a way that supports all of that, and recognizing that the role that food currently takes up in our lives as a population is way bigger than is healthy for us, and we need to basically reduce the role that food plays and fill that gap with something more in line with our long-term health and well-being goals.
Thank you. Thank you for summarising that. And thank you for being on. I've loved having you on. And go and follow Claire, go and see what she's about. And ask yourself the question as you finish listening to the podcast about whether you feel like you are living a healthy, fulfilling life full of freedom. And if the answer is yes, then I totally salute you. If the answer is I'm not really sure or no, then look closer about your relationship with food and your relationship with yourself, because there will be some key pointers there and things to look at there. And it takes bravery and it takes courage, but there's people around like Claire that have totally got you back to be able to move through that into this freedom type lifestyle. So thank you so much for listening, and I will see you all on the next episode. And thank you so much, Claire, for your time.
Thank you too. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode. I hope that you're feeling energised, fearless and inspired to take action today to stand in your greatness. I share even more tools and resources on my I Dare to Leap email newsletter. By signing up, you not only get early access to the I Dare to Leap products and services, but you also get brand new podcast episodes delivered straight to your inbox every Monday, meaning you'll never miss your weekly dose of becoming fearless energy. Sign up now at www.idaretoleap.com/newsletter or click the link in the show notes below.